I gave up at 25, that I had to give up to start living again. And you can start living again. Watch the video.
I gave up. At 25. At 25, I thought I was supposed to have everything figured out. A good job, a clear career path, money in the bank, a relationship, a plan for the next 10 years. Everywhere I looked, it felt like everyone else was moving ahead. Friends were buying houses, people on social media were showing off their perfect lives, former classmates were posting promotions, holidays and achievements. And there I was, wondering if I was already falling behind. The truth is, 25 can be a strange age. You're no longer a teenager. People expect you to be an adult. They expect you to know what you're doing. But deep down, many people at 25 are still trying to work out who they are and where they belong. I spent years worrying that I wasn't doing enough. I worried about my career. I worried about money. I worried about what people thought of me. I worried about whether I was successful enough. And then something happened. I gave up. Not on life, not on my future. I gave up on the idea that I had to have everything worked out by 25. That decision changed everything. Because once I stopped trying to live by somebody else's timeline, I started living by my own. I realized that life isn't a race. There is no finish line at 25. There is no magic moment where suddenly everything makes sense. Most successful people didn't become successful at 25. Many found their path much later. Some started businesses in their 40s. Some changed careers in their 50s. Some discovered their purpose after retirement. Yet we put enormous pressure on ourselves to have all the answers before we're even properly experienced in life. Think about it. At 25, you've only been an adult for a few years. You're expected to make decisions that could affect the next 40 years of your life. It's no wonder so many people feel lost. The biggest lesson I learned was that comparison is poison. When you compare your life to somebody else's highlight reel, you'll always feel behind. There will always be someone earning more money. There will always be someone driving a nicer car. There will always be someone who seems further ahead. But here's the thing. You're comparing your real life to their carefully edited version. You don't see their stress. You don't see their debt. You don't see their doubts. You don't see the struggles they keep hidden. Once I stopped comparing myself to everyone else, I felt lighter. I could finally focus on improving my own life instead of measuring it against somebody else's. I also gave up trying to impress people. For years, I cared too much about what others thought. I worried about looking successful instead of becoming successful. I worried about fitting in instead of standing out. I worried about approval from people whose opinions didn't really matter. The funny thing is, most people are too busy thinking about themselves to spend much time thinking about you. That realization is incredibly freeing. The moment you stop living for other people's approval is the moment you start building a life that actually makes you happy. I also learned that failure isn't the end. At 25, every mistake feels huge. A bad job feels like a disaster. A failed relationship feels like the end of the world. A setback feels permanent. But life doesn't work like that. Most setbacks become lessons. Most failures become experience. Most wrong turns eventually lead somewhere useful. The people who succeed aren't the people who never fail. They're the people who keep moving after failure. And perhaps that's the most important thing I learned after giving up at 25. I stopped trying to be perfect. I stopped trying to have all the answers. I stopped trying to meet impossible expectations. Instead, I focused on small improvements. Learning new skills. Saving a little money. Taking opportunities. Meeting new people. Growing one step at a time. And slowly, things started to change. Not overnight, not in a week, not even in a year. But they changed. So if you're 25 and feeling lost, remember this. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not running out of time. You are simply at the beginning of your journey. The truth is that giving up at 25 was one of the best things I ever did. I gave up comparing. I gave up chasing approval. I gave up impossible expectations. And when I did that, I finally started living. Because sometimes the best thing you can do isn't hold on tighter. Sometimes it's letting go of the things that were holding you back all along. And that's why I gave up at 25.
if you are 25 years old and feel like you have already failed at life because you aren't a millionaire with a house and a perfect career, I have a secret that might actually save your sanity. Most of us are running a race that doesn't even have a finish line, and the moment I decided to stop running was the moment I actually started living. We have been sold this huge lie that our 20s are the absolute peak of our lives. We are told that if we don't have the six-figure job, the perfect partner, and a clear 5-year plan by the time we hit our mid-20s, we have somehow missed the boat. I spent years losing sleep and comparing my messy reality to everyone else's highlight reel on Instagram. I thought I was a late bloomer, but really I was just burnt out from trying to follow a map that wasn't mine. I want to talk about why giving up on those heavy expectations is the only way to find what you actually want to do with your time. Let's look at why we feel this way. There is something called the quarter-life crisis, and studies show that about 75% of young adults go through it. It usually hits right after graduation when the structure of school disappears and you are left standing in a giant field of what now. I remember sitting in my tiny, cramped apartment a few years ago, staring at a degree I didn't even want to use, feeling like a total fraud. I was broke, I was lonely, and I was physically exhausted. I felt like I was in a room where everyone else knew a secret password that I didn't have. This is where the problem starts. We get caught in the sunk cost fallacy. This is the idea that because we spent 4 years studying something or 3 years in a specific job, we have to stay on that path forever, even if it makes us miserable. We think that changing our minds is the same thing as failing, but the truth is that the average person changes their career path about 5 to 7 times throughout their life. Trying to pick your forever career at 21 is like trying to pick your favourite food for the rest of your life when you've only ever eaten crackers. When I say I gave up, I don't mean I sat on my couch and did nothing for the rest of the year. I gave up on the shoulds. I stopped saying things like I should be a manager by now or I should have a massive savings account. When you drop those shoulds, you finally create space for coulds. You could try that weird hobby you've been thinking about. You could move to a new city without a perfect plan. You could take an entry-level job in a totally different field just to see if it makes you smile. The turning point for me was realizing that life is a long marathon, not a 100-meter sprint. If you live until you are 80, you have about 55 years of adulthood left. Why are we acting like the first 5 years decide the entire story? I met a guy named Mark who didn't start his actual career until he was 42. He spent his 20s travelling and working at random coffee shops. He is now the most successful and happy person I know. He told me that giving up on the world's timeline was the only thing that gave him his actual life back. Your 20s are not the end of the road, they are the messy, awkward rehearsal. It is perfectly okay to quit the job that drains your soul. It is okay to move back into your parents' basement to save some cash. It is okay to not have a clue what you are doing. Once you stop trying to be successful by someone else's definition, you finally have the energy to build a life that feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good in a photo. Stop racing against a clock that isn't real. You have plenty of time to figure this out. If you're feeling stuck right now, check out this next video on how to find your passion when you feel like you have no talents.